Okay, last semester I started adding some more like additional materials from outside the textbook, and it's like usually what happens is a student will ask a question and I'll go find out more about it, and then I'll come to class to talk about it. We were talking about different breathing methods as far as reducing anxiety, and this is in the chapter 14 PowerPoint, so if you go towards the end you'll see the supplemental too, and you can click those and find out more about it. In this experiment, what they did was there's 4 different groups. And so one group, they're seeing if they're going to reduce anxiety and, increase more of a positive affect. And so in this experiment, what they're trying to see is if they're going to increase positive affect by the different breathing methods, mindfulness meditation, so on and so forth. So they have 4 different groups, 111, about 30 in each group. Maybe it could be a little bit more, but that's okay. The mindfulness meditation group, we have the box breathing group. And so with the box breathing, like you would inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds. It's a box, 4, 4, and 4, or 3, 3, 3, 6, 6, 6, whatever it is. The other one is called cyclic breathing, and we also talked about this in class, the idea of the physiological sigh, the people where you breathe in, and then you take another little short inhale at the end, and then let that out. And what we talked about with that physiological sigh is that children, babies, if they're crying, one of their ways of self-soothing is to do that physiological sigh. And like I said, I've seen that in my son before. And that's when he does that, it's like, okay, he is starting to now end this cycle of, this was when he was a baby. He's going to end that cycle of crying now. So yeah, if you see here, it's like up, you breathe in for 1 second, and then you breathe in for just a little bit more, and then you would breathe out for 2 seconds. That's also kind of key. The idea that you're going to have your exhale longer than your inhale, because that is going to activate the parasympathetic system, the rest and digest, instead of the fight or flight. So we got the meditation, we got the cyclic sighing, we've got the box breathing, and then we have what you might have heard of as the Wim Hof breathing method. There's some other terms for it, I can't remember. They're basically saying hyperventilation for this. I am not going to try to show you how to do this because I don't want to pass out. You breathe in real fast, in and out really fast, and you do this numerous times, so 30 different breaths like that. And then you breathe in a really deep breath and you hold it for 15 seconds. All kinds of research on that breathing method. If you want to go look it up, again, Wim Hof is the person that you would want to look at. He does this breathing method, and then he's able to stay in freezing water for periods that seem much longer than a person should be able to do. Okay, we got the 4 different groups. They had measured positive affect on the PANAS, the PANAS scale. There's several different, I think there's 10 different things on that scale. But what they're specifically looking at was for the positive affect. It's like, did this breathing method, if we have people do this for several days, will it increase their positive affect? Will it be in a better mood, essentially? And they did. And it's actually kind of on a scale. So it's the ones in the controlled breathing groups experienced a daily increase in positive affect of 1.91 points. This is on a scale from 1 to 7, so that's a pretty big increase. The people that just did the mindfulness, though, it was only a 1.22. Mindfulness is good. I mean, if you go from 1 to 7, if you go from a 4 to a 5 in positive affect, that's great. If you go from a 4 to a 6, that's awesome. Okay, and so what they found out, so we do have that increase in the positive affect in the controlled breathing groups, but it turned out that the cyclic sighing group actually had the most increase in the positive affect. And their hypothesis, again, which I have already mentioned, is the idea that you are exhaling longer than your inhale. Your inhale is 1.25 compared to the 2 for the exhale, which does bring up a question as far as the research design. We probably should have had a group that just did that longer exhales than inhales without the physiological sigh, just to see how it would have ranked, because their theory was that this group was, the cyclic breathing group was going to have the most increase in positive affect, but maybe to have a group a little bit more similar compared to the other 2 maybe would have been a good idea. But still, it's an interesting study for sure. Just kind of related, I saw this at the same time I was creating this, the idea that we don't breathe well for numerous reasons, but one of the reasons that we don't breathe well is we're always like hunched over a phone or a computer screen, and it's causing our spine to be kind of bent over like that, which means that we can't get those deep belly breaths in. And so we do this shallow chest breathing because we're always kind of hunched over, sending these like stress signals to the brain. So it's definitely something to think about if you're, health conscious and you like the stuff from chapter 14, is that you need to get this up so that you can actually have good breathing throughout the day. So that was one study that we talked about last semester that I thought was kind of interesting. And roughly at the same time, we talked about this study as well, a meta-analysis. I do like meta-analyses. I like seeing, we've talked about it already in class, but the idea that you're taking a bunch of different stats from a bunch of different studies and you're putting it into one paper. I like that idea because it gives you an idea of what that entire field looks like. Instead of just, we normally just see these really flashy studies. And it's like, just because we see this one flashy study that had the big effect size, it doesn't mean that entire field has those huge effect sizes. Meta-analyses, I believe, are good. And yes, here's the definition. Meta-analysis, systematic method using stats techniques for combining results from different studies to get the overall effect for that particular research area. How I do that is, first of all, I need to go and identify all of the articles. And this meta-analysis is on omega-3 and aggression. So we'll talk more about aggression in a later chapter. But so the first thing they need to do is go find all the articles. So they went to PubMed, PubMed Central, PsycInfo, so on and so forth. They got about 1,800 different articles. They removed the duplicates. They looked to make sure that they could get the full text. And then when they went through there for the eligibility, they're wanting to do true experiments. And so if it's not a random controlled trial, they kick it out. If it's another meta-analysis, they're going to kick that out. If it's not published in English, they kicked it out. If aggression, we need to assess aggression if we're going to look for a meta-analysis on omega-3's effect on aggression. So they end up kicking quite a few out, but that's just the nature of some of these just weren't going to be good articles for this meta-analysis. And they get it down to 28 articles. 28 articles and an N of about 4,000. So that's pretty good. These are the articles, and this is basically showing you the effect size. So like for Adams 2018, it had an effect size is a pretty good one, somewhere around maybe 0.6, 0.7. So you can see that most of them are on this side, most of them are not here, and there's just a couple that are over here. And so what we're trying to do basically is average all of those together to say this is the effect size for the entire field looking at all these articles. The overall effect size, usually when in psych stats, we usually see Cohen's D, but they did Hedges G for this. So the overall effect size was statistically significant. We get a G of about 0.20. It is significant. Our confidence interval is basically saying if we think it's 0.20, it could be 0.06, which is not that great, or it could be 0.35, which that's pretty big. 0.20, that's healthy. That's a fine number for a meta-analysis. And what they also found is when they go through a meta-analysis, they'll see some other things that they'll pick up. So for example, it seems to work in a variety of settings. The idea of taking omega-3 to reduce aggression. Some of these studies, you may have read about these, the idea that people that are in prison, they were giving them omega-3s and it was causing their aggression to go down. It does seem to work in a variety of settings. It works with children, also adults. It works for males and females. The type of omega-3 didn't really seem to matter, and it also works with, we'll talk more about this later on, reactive and proactive aggression. So yeah, the idea of taking omega-3 to reduce aggression, there's at least some research to back that idea up. So it's kind of a neat finding, I think. Okay, that's it for these two articles. I hope you enjoyed them. Thank you for listening.